In ancient times, when the world was still awfully young, there existed two brothers, Shumla and Nishumbla, and they saw everything around them. And whereas some beings might look upon the world with wonder, with awe, moved by the immense beauty of things, or inspired with ideas and creativity and invention, when Nishumbla and Shumla looked upon the world, they were motivated by greed, by the desire to own, to possess, to conquer, to dominate, to enslave everything to their own will. Not just a little bit of the world, the way most tyrants will be satisfied, but they wanted everything that they ever beheld. And these two brothers, they plotted and they planned and they thought at immense length. And finally they came up with a scheme that would not simply involve summoning their fellow asuras, their fellow demons, but making themselves impregnable in the process. These two beings, they set about meditating, they set about perfecting themselves, disciplining themselves, attaining such a state of inner perfection that it took 3,000 years in preparation. And at the end of this, they were so radiant with outer spirituality, despite the inward greed that craved all things, but they had attained all other forms of mastery, that they prayed to Brahma. And Brahma heard their prayers and saw the devotions that they had made to mastering the power of the chakras and of the kundalini and spiritual insights and attainments. And so he came. And the two brothers said that they would like a boon, a gift from Brahma in exchange for all that they had achieved. And he said, "Ask, and it is within my power, I shall grant it." And they said, "We would like to be invulnerable to all of the weapons and the wounds that may be wielded by gods or by men." Brahma thought of this and said at length, "Yes, it is granted, it is yours. Of gods and of men." Well, now made immune to all possible weapons, the two brothers Shumla Nishumbla decided that they would wage their war upon the gods themselves. They summoned vast armies of their fellow demons to join them upon the fields of battle, and they besieged the very heavens themselves, the very palaces in which the gods dwelt, and they drove them out of those palaces. Vast numbers of lives were lost, but the armies of these conquering brothers were so gargantuan, so invincible, that it seemed that the gods themselves would be driven into the very edge of oblivion. On and on and on they went. And no matter what weapons Vishnu or Shiva or Rudra or any of the others would throw at these two brothers, be they tridents, be they spears, be they swords, be they axes, anything you care to name, the weapons would bounce off, leaving not so much as a bruise, not so much as a scar, or the tiniest of cuts, nothing. Well, the gods who had been driven into exile went to consult with Brahma himself and said, "Why is it that these two brothers are invulnerable to everything that we throw at them? We kill the other asuras, the other demons, readily enough, but not these two." And Brahma said, "Well, they sought from me a boon. They asked that no weapon wielded by any god or man should injure them." And there was perhaps something in the way that Brahma said this that got the gods to thinking. There is a catch in any ill-won boon, any ill-intentioned extortion of a gift. Nothing is as it first seems. If they are invulnerable to the weapons of gods. Are they then invulnerable also to the weapons of goddesses? And here Brahma smiled, for he had worked into that blessing a flaw. Seeing where these two brothers might take their boon, he had ensured a failure in giving them exactly to the letter what they had asked for, and no more. And so the gods called to Ambika, who came with her 8 resplendent arms, and into each hand upon her body the gods placed for her a weapon, a sword, a spear, a trident, an axe. They armed her to the teeth, and when she went upon the field of battle, spinning and dancing and twisting and turning, arms flying every which way, heads rolled, limbs were severed, blood flowed in great abandon, and the two brothers, getting cut and nicked but not killed by the flying weapons, realised that they had been deceived by Brahma, or perhaps it would be better to say deceived by their own foolishness and arrogance. And they fled the field of battle and sought the help of another asura who so far had not joined this dread battle waged against the gods. They sought the aid of Raktabija, a huge monstrous being that lumbered upon the field of battle and faced down the goddess herself. And as she hacked and she cut at him with her weapons, the blood flew here and the blood flew there, and where the drops of blood splattered upon the earth, each splatter became like a seed of blood, for that is what the name Raktabija means, the seeding of blood. And from these scattered seeds there grew not crops or trees or flowers, but replicas, duplicates, clones of Raktabija himself, until with 1,000 splatters of blood there are 1,001, the original versions of Raktabija, each armed and fanged and clawed and hacking and tearing and ripping at the gods and the goddesses in this dread battle. And finally both Ambika and the various gods around her could see that this was a battle that they were not going to win, for as much as they might hack into the unspeakable Raktabija, he would duplicate and duplicate and duplicate himself. It was a battle that no one could win. But Ambika thought of one who might, and she began to dance and sing, and she called to her sister, her fellow goddess. She called to Kali, who came, dark-skinned and fiery-eyed, whirling and twisting and dancing upon the field of battle, the bells upon each of her many arms, her ankles, dancing, ringing, singing as she came to the field of battle. And there she arrived, slaughtering 100 asuras in her journey to meet with Ambika. And Ambika explained to her, watch what happens. And she slashed the sword into the flesh of Raktabija, and 100 droplets of blood splattered out of the wound, and 100 more Raktabijas sprung into existence before them. Ambika explained to Kali, see all that happens before us. What can we do? You who are the mistress of time, of death, the foremost in knowledge of battle, what can we do? Kali said, watch. And she began to leap about the field of battle, the bells upon her ankles and the bells at her wrists, dancing and turning and spinning, and she ripped and she tore at each of the clones of Raktabija, her jaw like the jaw of a snake, stretching and stretching and stretching and stretching, becoming enormous. And she was able to devour clone after clone after clone, crunching them with her enormous fangs, gulping them, swallowing them, great gobbets of flesh and oceans of blood flowing down her gullet into her stomach. Not one drop, not one single little drop of blood landing upon the soil to grow a new Raktabija. And when she had devoured the hundreds, the thousands of duplicate demons that were littering the field, there was left only the original Raktabija himself, the blood seeder. And he saw himself backed into a corner of the field, this vast, monstrous, towering goddess with her enormous, cavernous mouth approaching him, her tongue lolling, her fangs dripping with gore, and, like a serpent, somehow devouring a creature 10 times its own size, she gulped, and she gulped, and she gulped, and she swallowed Raktabija down whole, digesting him in the acids of her stomach, and the demon was no more. His clones were no more. The army of the two brothers of Shambhala Nishambhala had been vanquished, never again to challenge the gods, who now were able to go back to the heavens and rejoice. All of them, they cheered, they danced, they sang, and Kali began the dance of victory. And as she whirled and she whirled and she whirled, the bells on her ankles and her wrists spinning and twisting and turning and dancing, she began to dance with all of the joy of time itself that unravels all things. She danced upon every creature she came across, bringing death and destruction, almost as bad as the death and destruction which the two demonic brothers themselves had sought to bring upon the world. The gods cried out, the other goddesses cried out, they begged her to stop, but she was in such a frenzy of dancing that she could not bring herself to come out of her victory smile until her very husband himself, Shiva, hurled himself upon the floor, begging her to stop the dance, and her foot crashed down upon his body. And seeing that she had stamped upon her own beloved, suddenly the horror of it struck her and took her out of the frenzy of dance, and her great long tongue unfurled in shock and shame and horror, and maybe a memory of the hunger that had consumed her when she devoured the army of demons. And her dance stopped. She stepped back off the body of Shiva. And the world became calm and orderly and solid once again. The things which had begun to unravel ceased to unravel. Some of the beasts upon whom she had danced we have never seen since, for the waves of extinction had rolled out across the world. But the memory of them is still in the minds of the gods. And so, when we are in the joys of victory, in whatever battles we face, great or small, as we consume the wickedness about us and digest it and transform it, we must remember not to allow our victories to destroy the peace which we wish to make. Thank you.